You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Lohman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Lohman.
Welcome. I'm here with sidekick Doug from The Rational Capitalist. Hi, Doug.
Hello.
And Ashley on Headlines. Hi, Ashley.
Hey.
Coming up on the show in about 15 minutes, we'll be calling an expert on net neutrality, my friend Jawaid Bazyar. Why is this issue important? Because it's about free speech, brah. We're going to explain this piece of shit regulation to you in simple, entertaining terms, so stay with us. I've already given my opinion. But actually, there's some good stuff about it. It's complicated, you guys. And actually, I have no idea what Jawaid is going to say. I don't know his position, so we're going to get schooled later. We're all going to get schooled later. He knows what he's talking about because he actually runs a little ISP in Colorado, a regional ISP. And I got up really early doing my homework on this issue. Call the show to leave us a voice message at 707-681-5834, and we will play your messages on future shows, maybe. Also, like my Facebook page at Sunny Lohman, and you can put questions there or just email me at sunny@houseofsunny.tv. You can support the show and my video work at Patreon. Apparently, I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I don't know how to pronounce it right, so I'm going to keep saying it like that. Someone just said, you're pronouncing that wrong, but you can't tell someone how to pronounce it right on the internet. You can't actually do that. Join my elite squad over at Patreon and you'll get some really cool rewards like a secret Facebook group where only the most fun people hang out, t-shirts, mugs, Q&As, behind the scenes stuff, and if you buy a high enough member level, you get a shout out on this podcast. So today I want to mention and thank Richard Ong. He's a hero. Why is Richard a hero, Doug?
Because he donated a lot of money.
He's supporting the Cultural Revolution.
Oh,
I was looking for that answer. If you join my elite squad this week, you might get a mug or a t-shirt by Christmas. And I was just talking to Ashley about this morning. Ashley is my graphic designer. She did the Patreon ads that were so great. I came up with this crazy rising sun scheme, and Ashley put my face on all kinds of posters of Mao, and we sent those out. If you haven't seen those, I don't know, where can you get them? Facebook. Go to my Facebook page. I should probably make a nice little post on that on my WordPress blog so you guys can go over there and see them too, because they're really funny. They're really well done. Thank you, Ashley, so much for that. They're so cool. Let's see. So she and I are going to work on getting a t-shirt and a mug ready this week, which we'll just fulfill through Zazzle or something and send out. Because,
by the way, Mao was a riot.
Yeah, he was really a funny dude.
He was a real wacky guy.
He's one of my comedy heroes. You can support the show by subscribing on YouTube and iTunes and liking, commenting, starring, etc. You guys all know the drill. Share, obviously. All right, so we'll be doing some headlines later. We'll get into this Flynn business, the Russian Collusion nothing burger. I'm going to stop calling it the Russian Collusion news and start calling it the Democrat witch trials. Who are they going to throw in the river next to see if he floats? Kushner? Anyway, we'll get to that later. So,
but if he does float, he's a witch. If he doesn't float and he drowns, then he was a witch, right?
No, then he wasn't a witch, but he's dead. So.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't really matter. At that point, who cares? Oh, sorry, you weren't a witch, but we've just destroyed your life. That's basically what they've done to Flynn.
Right.
So, yeah, as far as the net neutrality, I know this issue is really, like, people are yawning, like, why should we do this? And I just think it's important. Ultimately, it's a free speech issue. It's also a free market issue. The vote is coming up on the 14th of December. It looks like it's going to go toward repealing those regulations. So it's just good to know about this and kind of, you know that it's all propaganda out there on both sides. I mean, it's really hard to figure out because it's a super complicated issue. And I was up this morning at 4:30 researching net neutrality with a pot of coffee.
Oh.
Yeah.
My condolences.
Yeah, that was like, I had to know something. And I'm sitting there this morning and I hear my cat in a fight. Because the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I have to let him out. Because if you don't let him out, he will wake up the entire house with his meowing. And when you have a 3-year-old, you know what that means.
Wait, cats can meow that loud?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about cats.
Well,
I thought a meow was really like meow. I didn't think it
No.
was like a dog barking type thing where that could wake you up.
Oh, it's like
wake a
wild
child up.
animal banshee. Meow.
Really?
And
See, I don't
it's
know anything about
incessant.
cats.
It's meow, 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 till you want to like tear your face off. So the first thing I do is just let him out before it begins. And he's got this, my cat is a really great cat. He's got this, he's the most friendly cat. He loves people. And you could put him around any child. He has these sharp claws, but you could put him around any child of any age and they would be safe. He's just the nicest, sweetest cat. He rolls over on his back and wants strangers to scratch his belly. He makes friends with all of the people in the neighborhood. They love him. He meets our neighbors before we do. And
this cat then is a dog?
It's like a dog.
It sounds like it. It sounds like you're describing a dog.
It does. And if we go on a walk, he follows us. So like Halloween, he just came with us the whole time.
So when you say you let him out, like what do you mean let him out? Like outside out or out of a room?
I open the door to the house.
Wait.
He goes outside.
Cats go outside? I thought there was
Oh, Doug.
I thought it was a litter box.
You know, it's nice living in California because he just poops outside now and I don't have to we have a litter box for him in case he has to go in the middle of the night, but he barely ever uses it, which is nice because those things stink.
Well, yeah, like everyone I've ever known, you go to their house if they have a cat, their house smells, and the first thing they say is, "Don't let the cat out. Don't let the cat out." And then the cat's gone. It's in a tree or something. No one can find it.
Unless you have a cat like my cat who's like a genius. And I think actually this cat is so smart that it does act like a dog. It follows us around. He's moved so much in his life that he doesn't really he doesn't really have a territory. He's just very people oriented. And when we move to a new house, I mean, he just kind of takes over a very large radius around our house. He roams really far. And his favorite thing to do is to go into people's houses. And we'll get phone calls and like your cat's on my bed. It's like, what? Okay. All right. Yeah, no, he's fine. Just let him out, you know? And not only that, so here's this friendly. Wait. Okay, what?
You're like a classic pet owner who thinks that's cute, that your cat's going in other people's houses and going on their bed. Have you noticed that the neighbors are kind of not actually smiling and laughing?
No, they love him. They actually love him. And the biggest danger with him is that he'll be kidnapped because he's so friendly and so nice. But
you're delusional.
No, I'm not. They talk to me. They tell me this stuff.
Is so nice. Everybody loves when he comes in their house uninvited.
All right. I'm about to tell you about the neighbor who hates him.
All right.
So
now this is realistic. Then.
Yeah, he's really, look, he is so friendly and he's fuzzy. He's cute. He's really lovey. So people actually really do like him. And then, and people come and say, "Oh, you're Nico's parents." And they that's how we meet our neighbors. And so I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? So that
neighbor that dislikes him.
So in addition to being super friendly though, he is a badass. He can basically kill anything. I mean, he's a smart hunter. In spite of the fact that he was basically an indoor cat for the first 4 years of his life, we let him out and he was immediately a really good killer. So he brings us, the biggest thing he ever brought us was basically a teenage-sized squirrel. I don't know many cats that could kill a squirrel.
A teenage squirrel.
A largish
Is that
squirrel.
So you measured that in squirrel years?
I'm just saying it wasn't a baby squirrel. It was a little bit bigger. It wasn't an adult squirrel, which I don't think he could catch. In fact, I'd worry about that. I'd worry that he'd seriously get bit. But, okay, so He's a friendly cat, but he's a hunter. He's a big cat. He's a tomcat. And so the neighbor across the street who's already, I've told you about this neighbor. She's the one who freaked out when somebody put wrapping paper in the garbage because it belonged in the recycling bin. And she is this yours? Does this belong to you? She said to me, it's like the second thing she ever said to me in my life. And the first thing she said was, your cat is eating my cat's food. That's the very first thing she ever said to me, yelling across the street at me. I'm like, hi, nice to meet you. We just moved in here in July. So she has a girl cat. And like I said, my cat doesn't really have a territory. He kind of considers the world his oyster. So when he finds a cat who is challenging him, he's just a real badass about it. So the very first thing he does in the morning is he goes over to that house and just sits there. Ooh. And like eggs on this other cat. So once in a while I hear, and this morning it happened again, where I'm hearing this other cat doing the cat fight sound. I'm sure you've heard that sound, wow, wow. And this cat actually has almost a human voice. And this cat was going, no, no. Like that's what it sounded like, I swear to God. No. Like that.
And that wasn't your neighbor. That was her cat.
I think it was the cat. It might have been my neighbor.
So, by the way, the number one thing you don't want to hear from your neighbor is my pet regards the world as its oyster.
Yeah.
I would say that's the number one thing you don't want your neighbor to tell you.
I've never actually said that to her because I haven't had any conversation with her beyond, is this yours? No, that's not mine. That's the extent of our chit chats.
In this neighbor's case, I would say, tell her that
her yard is my cat's yard.
Yeah, her yard is your cat's oyster.
I'm worried she's going to poison him. Like, I think she's mean enough. Anyway, so he's out there. I opened the door because a couple times I've had to just to shut him up. This other cat is so freaked out that he's there, and it's 5 a.m. and I just know that he's waking everybody up, or this other cat is waking everybody up. And I've gone out and actually like broken it up and pulled Nico back in the house. And so I go out there this morning and the cat is nowhere to be, the other cat is nowhere to be seen. I can hear it meowing. It sounds like it's maybe behind its fence where it's safe. And there's my cat just sitting in their driveway, like just sitting there calmly because he knows that he could beat that cat up. And so does that other cat, but she's freaking out because it's her territory. So it's
This has all the makings of a Judge Judy episode.
I know. I think she's going to poison my cat and I'm going to end up suing her.
Yeah, that would be a great episode.
Or maybe getting her arrested, because that's actually probably a bigger crime than just a Judge Judy crime.
Criminal cat slaughter.
Of course, how do you prove that? I mean, I could never prove it, but she's mean enough that...
You need to escalate surveillance.
I should put a little camera on him.
Right.
Get him a little GoPro.
Yeah, they make these cat cams. It'd be interesting to see what he does in a day, because he goes really far. And yeah.
That's a great idea. You could have a YouTube channel of Nico.
Of Nico?
Nico's adventures, yeah.
Nico Life. I can just make that another playlist on my YouTube channel. If you guys are interested in that, comment and let me know. It'd be hours and hours of entertainment.
You have to send him to the neighbor's house maybe we can get a glimpse inside the Iron Curtain.
I may as well.
Neighbor's house.
I may as well put him on video since I can't put myself on video. Right.
Right.
You want an update on the pred face? You want a pred face update?
Shrinkage meter, drum roll.
I am going to start measuring. I'm so pissed because so I got down to like 10 milligrams on prednisone, and that means my face is I'm 5 milligrams away from having a fairly normal face. And I failed getting off again. So I had to go, I'm back up now on 20. And it's so frustrating. I just don't know when it's going to be over. So now I'm just like, I'm giving up on the video for a while. I'm not going to wear costumes and shit because it takes a lot of extra time to create these videos. And if I'm not going to show my face and work on getting a nice video, and, I spent 4 hours editing the video with Bob Davis where I actually used my good camera. I spent a lot less time when we did the Thanksgiving episode but the footage was so grainy and awful. It compressed it too much. So just a lot of work figuring out how to do this and stuff. And I don't even like the outcome. And I can't even show my face, and it's just not as fun. I just don't think the video is as good if you can't really see me. Cause that's how good I am. I'm just kidding. I'm just going to stop doing video for now, and hopefully soon, hopefully in January. That's all I can say. I don't know when it's going to happen. And my health is still up and down, unfortunately. And part of the problem is that I'm having a battle with my insurance company that won't allow me to take this medication that my doctor prescribed. And maybe next week I'll get into that. I'll tell my Obamacare nightmare story. I'm basically a poster child for Obamacare, and I hate it with the power of 1,000 suns. And
that's shocking.
Yeah, and so if I tell my story well enough, maybe I can get on Fox with that. So we'll try to do that.
Well, remember when Obama was hugging people in the crowd that had health problems before Obamacare? Maybe we should stage a town hall where like Trump is hugging you for
repealing
suffered the consequences of Obamacare.
I'm serious. I can't tell you how much money this damn law has.
Honey.
It's not even like, I understand the healthy people complaining because they're having to pay more. And actually this year, it's true that my premium actually went down, despite the fact that I'm a really expensive person to insure. I had great insurance before, and my premiums were high as fuck. And I was paying for it. I was definitely paying for it. And now you're all paying for me.
I'm coming after you.
But yet I'm actually not paying less overall. And they are such bitches. They are such little bitches about my care that you would not believe the shit that I'm having to do to get, I am not getting the same care. I'm suffering. Months and months of my life are going by on prednisone because I can't get this medicine I need. And so it's a freaking nightmare. It's making me sicker. So, and that's really the ultimate thing is if you're sick and you're living under state medicine, you're just fucked and you're just going to get sicker. So it's not good unless your illness is, that you want to change your sex, then you got it made because you can get the sex change. Right.
Free. And then you quit.
If you want to change your sex, you're doing really well under Obamacare. But if you just have a run-of-the-mill autoimmune disease, you're screwed. All right. So let's get into net neutrality, and we can bring Jawaid on. He's here on mute here. Jawaid, you there?
I am here. Howdy.
Howdy. This is Jawaid Bazyar, president of Forethought.net, a small regional ISP in Colorado. So he is in the thick of all of this regulation. He knows this is like one of the most regulated industries in general. And I think that's part of it is we're not dealing with a free market here. So it's really confusing and complicated to begin with.
It's very similar to the healthcare and insurance problem where you have a mixture of private and public institutions and laws and regulations that screw up the free market. It's really hard to disentangle what's causing the problems and what the remedies are.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. There's, this, all of this net neutrality conversation kind of arises from this milieu of regulation. And depending on the part of the country you're in, some of that regulation is quite intense, or it's not too bad. In Colorado, where we're at, it's not too bad. And but generally speaking, under the original kind of telecommunications law in the U.S., which was established in 1934 as part of all of the great deal avalanche of government intrusion, historically it's been quite bad, and it's what really cemented, that Bell telephone monopoly that existed for 100 years. And so we're still in a lot of respects, we're still recovering from that
Right.
ridiculous monopoly.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into that. Let me first just give the short, brief history of what this current regulation is and what happened, and then we'll get into that. So, or just what's happening. So on why this is a news story right now is that on December 14th, the FCC is voting on net neutrality regulations, which were passed in 2014. So, and I guess it's going to die because they have the votes to kill net neutrality. And so the left is up in arms about this because they like government control of stuff. But there's an element of this that is reasonable because it's a reaction to what Jawaid was talking about, some of these old regulations and these old monopolies. So, but we have to keep in mind that these regulations have only been in place since 2014. So the sky isn't going to fall. But there were some bad things happening. One of those was that these big old monopolies, like our favorite companies, Comcast and AT&T. I don't know about Comcast, but AT&T for sure is a spinoff from those big bells, right?
Well, Verizon
is a spinoff.
Yep.
Comcast definitely has a monopoly. They're such ginormous behemoth. We'll just use some Atlas Shrugged references here, but they're basically James Taggart companies. They're run by James Taggarts. They spend money on pull, not on becoming better, because they don't have to. They just have tied up the markets. And so they were slowing down feeds from Netflix and YouTube. And even though you as a customer would buy, so many bits per second, they were slowing certain companies' feeds into your home, even though you paid for bigger bandwidth. And then they were going to those companies and saying, if you pay me some money, I'll stop slowing your feeds. But at the same time, they were lying and saying they weren't doing it. So it was like this completely bizarre thing. And everybody knew they were doing it. They've tested it. They know they were doing it. Everybody knows they were doing it. And that's now been proven and they've admitted it. But they were lying about it for a long time. So they weren't being transparent. Now, in 2014, Google lobbied the Obama administration and they somehow, I don't really understand this part of it, but they went ahead and classified the internet under this thing, Title II, which basically takes government control of the internet by designating it a public utility. And so to me, this is like, all right, we have this problem. These these essential monopolies are doing something they're basically committing fraud, and they're trying to extort other companies, and they're doing that, and they can do that and they get away with it because of all the money they have and all the lobbying they do locally at the local level. And then, the solution to that was to we'll just take over the whole internet. But the danger there is that they're definitely going to take that power. They're going to take that power and they're going to ban hate speech, which we know is just any speech that isn't Marxist, socialist, SJW bullshit. So that's the real danger of the way the regulations are now. But I guess in my opinion, it seems like that's the main danger of the way they had it. But at the same time, there does seem to be a problem here that needs to be fixed. And what the FCC chairman has said is that he will require transparency. So he's just saying, oh yeah, free markets, except it's not free markets. So it doesn't really solve the problem. Yeah. And now, Jawaid, I'd just like to hear what you think about the whole thing.
Sure. So a lot of what you said is sort of what the conversation is, and what people on different sides of the argument represent the conversation as being. It's not exactly correct, though. If I may take a few steps back. So there's been sort of a long-held understanding that if I buy an internet connection from somebody, my internet provider is just acting as a conduit to help connect me to whatever other internet user I want to talk to.
Right, like it's a straight line.
Yeah, and that is the case. That's how the industry operates. Even these big guys. There have only been a small handful of situations in the past where a service provider actually tried to block a competing service. And I don't remember the exact time or date or the companies involved, but it was a cable company out east, I think, tried to block Vonage once back in the 2000s. And, that lasted all of a couple days before public outcry and uproar made them back off on that. When
Isn't it true, though, that they were throttling Netflix, so you couldn't watch Netflix in HD, but you could watch it in SD?
Well, that's where I'm getting to. So,
okay.
So Netflix, of course, and other video streaming services have come of age and become one of the dominant applications that people use the internet for on our network in the evenings.
You mean it's not Facebook? Because it's Facebook in this house. But
well, in regards to the amount of the volume of data that's transmitted.
Yeah, I'm joking.
Okay. In the evening on my network, Netflix is half or more, up to 60% sometimes of all of our traffic.
By the way, most single men claim the bandwidth is Netflix.
Yes. I was going to say the industry that got the internet launched, of course, was porn. And then,
I didn't want to say it explicitly. I just thrown it out there.
In the long run, it will be cat videos. Netflix is just a stepping stone on the road to complete dominance of the internet by cats.
So it was porn and chill?
Yeah. So half of our traffic or more is Netflix and the other video streaming services. And a few years ago, there was this sort of very public dispute between Comcast and Netflix that came up over claims by Netflix that Comcast was throttling Netflix. Well, that's not really what happened. This was a example of a kind of dispute that internet companies get into a lot, actually, and that has happened kind of over and over throughout the entire history of the commercial internet, where essentially you've got a company like Netflix, which has content, and a company like Comcast that has the eyeballs, the people watching that content. And when the volume of traffic gets to a point where it has, frequently these companies get into arguments about how they should split the cost of transporting that information from Netflix to the Comcast end user. This type of dispute is not at all uncommon, and a big kind of public thing happens every few years. You can even go back to the 90s, and these same sorts of arguments were happening then. And what often happens is one company will not increase the capacity of their connections at, and I'm trying to keep this simple, but pairing points. So there's 5 or 6 cities around the country where all the different internet companies kind of connect with each other to make the internet work, right? So I've got a person who wants to look at a particular website. I have to connect to the network that connects to that website at some point. These places are called peering points or peering exchanges. And what Comcast actually did was, because they felt like Netflix had engineered their network in a way that was causing Comcast to bear almost all of the cost of transporting Netflix's content, and Comcast felt that Netflix should bear more of that cost. Mm-hmm. And so what Comcast did was essentially not increase the capacity of their peering connections with Netflix. So
isn't it the customer that's deciding to pull Netflix? It's not Netflix. Or is it? Is there some technological way that they were setting things up that was really making it heavy data use when it didn't have to be that way.
So,
That's probably way too technical to explain, but
it's about where you hand off the traffic. So let's say that Sonny bought a new pair of shoes off the internet, but that the company you bought them from said they're only $5, but you have to drive from San Francisco to Minneapolis to pick up your shoes.
Right.
Okay.
I see. So Comcast was having to drive from San Francisco to Minneapolis.
Comcast was having to incur all of the costs. Now, like I said, and this type of disagreement is commonplace and has been commonplace throughout the entire history of the internet, and it changes constantly as new applications arise. And what didn't get a lot of any really that I noticed public notice was that after all the yelling and screaming and threats from lawmakers and posturing, is that Comcast and Netflix ended up compromising and working out a solution.
So the free market was kind of handling this.
Yeah, so there was all this public posturing, and then at the end of the day, they did a deal. And what the deal was Netflix agreed to put stacks of computer servers with their programming on it in data centers all over the country to distribute it closer to the people who want to watch the content. And that reduces Comcast's costs in transporting it. So that's, as you say, a free market solution. It's like, hey, we argued about this for a while, but now we've come to a compromise that makes sense for everybody.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
is it complicated by the fact, though, that Comcast is essentially a monopoly? And it's hard to break that monopoly at this point because they basically own all the assets, the cable.
There is a monopoly in cable, the legal monopoly is just in sort of that traditional cable TV service. There is no legal monopoly that I know of that's granted to any service provider anywhere for internet service. So what you're seeing in the market is that there's multimodal internet access. So I can get internet over telephone lines. I can get internet over cable TV wire. I can get internet over wireless. I can get internet over satellite.
Was Comcast competing with Netflix in the content space as well? In other words,
yeah, because they had the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, did they have a motive to try and block Netflix because they want their customers to buy movies from Comcast, not from Netflix?
That's complicated. Netflix presumably broadcasts programming and pays Comcast for programming that Comcast owns through its NBC subsidiary. Nobody really knows the details of any of those agreements. At the time, I would say I'm not aware that Comcast had any significant market presence in video streaming over the internet generally. It's a concern. And this is one of the things that people bring up as an argument for net neutrality, right? Is that, without this, all these ISPs are going to block competing companies' content and only let you watch their content. Well, that hasn't actually happened anywhere.
Right.
And so I often describe net neutrality as a solution in search of a problem. Like, we have to prevent all these bad things from happening that haven't happened. And in order to prevent things that haven't happened from happening, we have to have the government take over the internet.
Yeah, that sounds like a leftist solution right there.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be true that they were throttling Netflix and Google and YouTube. I mean, is that not true?
Well, so when you use the term throttling, I am taking a specific action to actively reduce the amount of traffic that can be transmitted.
Right.
What Comcast was doing was simply not, while they were having the dispute, they were not paying to increase the interconnection capacity between Netflix and Comcast.
I see.
So that was Comcast's way of putting some pressure on Netflix to say, hey, we have to come to some kind of new understanding about how to do this.
They're like, we're not going to help you out. We're not going to put all this new infrastructure in.
I'm tired of spending tens of millions of dollars on new equipment because you don't want to transport your content from
You got to meet
Angeles.
me in Nevada.
You got to meet me in the middle. Yeah.
You got to meet me in Des Moines, Iowa, at least.
I am loath to say anything in defense of Comcast, but this whole scenario was misreported and misrepresented mightily.
Well, and I don't remember before 2014, I don't remember constant news information about how miserable people were with their internet. Like, I don't remember the people out here, the customers. I mean, maybe some people were annoyed at Netflix being slow and the buffering. And it is true. I have noticed that Amazon streaming and Netflix streaming no longer buffer the way they used to. I don't get slowdowns like I used to. So that has improved, but it wasn't killing me. Like it kind of would solve itself if you just sort of would wait a little bit and let it it is better now, but it wasn't. I was just glad to I was streaming movies from Netflix. I was happy about that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and at the end of the day, people's, expectations increased and the industry worked hard and met those expectations.
Yeah.
And you're right. The video streaming experience is greatly improved. And, and the compromise that Netflix and Comcast worked out wasn't just Comcast's benefit. It was actually a coalition of the cable TV companies working to build these data centers with Netflix. And it's a benefit. It's a big benefit to small companies like mine too, actually, because these are public data centers. I built fiber down to the one in the Denver metro area, and was able to basically eliminate my cost.
You don't have to drive to Minneapolis from Denver.
Now it's just I pick it up here in Denver. It's very inexpensive for me to get that, and when it's half my traffic volume, it's a significant cost.
That's great.
So now that cost is gone, and my customers get a better video streaming experience. And I just have to think that if the government had stepped in and mandated some kind of solution, they wouldn't have taken into account small companies like mine at all, because that's not how regulatory systems work.
Yeah.
There's regulatory capture where the big players who have all the money and can afford the $1 million lobbyists are the ones who end up writing the rules for their benefit.
Right. So is there a way I think what we're learning here is that we're definitely for repeal of these regulations.
Yes.
And not just on a free speech basis, but actually the free market was the so-called free market, the kind of free market was kind of working out a solution. Mm-hmm. And that was going well. And we don't even necessarily need any regulations then to fix what really hasn't happened at all.
But let me ask a question.
Sure.
Was net neutrality imposed under this Title II, sort of like treating everybody as a utility, or did that not happen, or did that happen? That's
what it was. So in the 90s, the Congress passed the Telecommunications Act of 96, which did a couple of things. It was what opened up the traditional telephone company assets to competition.
It's what allowed you to go into business, right?
It's what allowed us to go into business originally, yes. And it was a way of them saying, hey, there is this 100-year-old monopoly, and we need to do more to kind of reverse the effects of a government-granted monopoly that existed for 100 years. And just as an example, right? So 96 would have been right at the beginning of the internet era. And they recognized that, and they specifically at that time in that law said, well, one, there will be no taxes on internet, right? There's, and still to this day, there are no taxes on internet service.
Yeah.
And two, we will not regulate the internet, and we will treat the internet for regulatory purposes as what they called an information service, which is basically something where there's lots of ways to get to the information and effective competitive ways. And that's the case today, right? You have effective competition in most large metro areas. There's Comcast and the other cable companies certainly have a lot of market power, but they've delivered dare I say it, they've delivered an amazing product at a great price.
That price keeps going up, though, man. I mean, I remember paying $34 for cable.
Yes.
I remember those days. And I remember thinking that was too much.
There are ways in which the cable companies have effectively leveraged their monopoly status in television services. Although that's, with DirecTV and Dish, they don't really have a monopoly in TV service anymore either.
Right.
Right. It's a lot more complicated, and it starts to get hard to judge the influences and the ways that these things interact with each other and cause market distortions.
They're competitors of yours, and you have to somehow sell people on your internet service instead of Comcast when people are getting their TV from Comcast,
right? When
they can just bundle it and pay one bill, and it's so much easier.
Yes.
That's really hard. So good for you for growing in that environment. That's incredible.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
It's challenging. It is a capital-intensive business, and that's the main restriction on competition in internet is that it takes a lot of money to build networks out. So,
what can be done to crack that cable monopoly?
Well, I think the feds could just pass a law saying that local governments are not permitted to have monopolies or not allowed to grant monopolies. That having monopolies is government-enforced monopolies is well understood to be a negative for folks, and don't do it anymore. But at this point in time, right, I don't know what you would do.
Yeah,
you could. And the industry is changing so fast. I mean, the cable companies recognize that their dominance in cable TV is at an end. They've started losing subscribers overall as people shift to internet-based video.
Internet, yeah. Why would you buy all that stuff when you can just buy a couple small subscriptions online?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting. So we don't need any, we need to repeal this. And you're saying you don't think we need any replacement? Because I've heard people say, yeah, we need to get rid of these regulations because the government shouldn't take over the internet. And that's really dangerous. And we don't want to give them that power. It's not a public utility. Keep it a free market. But maybe the Congress needs to pass a law, not, banning throttling. But from what you said, it sounds like that would force a company to spend money and take action. And that's not right either.
Right. I mean, and like I said, in most places, there's effective competition. You can watch Netflix on your AT&T DSL line, or you can watch Netflix on your Comcast cable internet line. And if Comcast were to pull a stunt like that, then AT&T would get a whole bunch of subscribers. In some places, the remaining monopolies, particularly in rural communities like we have a lot of in Colorado, the real kind of remaining monopoly, at least when it comes to internet, is the Bell CenturyLink in our case. There are hundreds of towns.
CenturyLink.
Yes.
Oh, I have a story about CenturyLink.
My mom has them, and when I'm at her house in Minneapolis, I don't know why, I'm like, Mom, she has Comcast for cable, and she has this CenturyLink internet. It's so slow. It's like, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
She says, I don't know how to switch. I don't know how to get. I'm just call Comcast. Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah,
well, inertia.
Totally inertia. Yeah. She's so afraid of it screwing things up, and she wouldn't know what to do because she's 75 or whatever. So,
yeah. So my company just brought 100 megabit broadband to Silverton, Colorado, which is a little town of 600 people, literally in the middle of nowhere. It's an hour drive to go anywhere from Silverton.
We were just talking last week to Ashley because her family lives in a small town in Minnesota, and her dad freaks out about the kids watching Netflix because they're using up all the data. He pays what, $1 a gig?
Oh, I don't know how much, but it's a lot. Like, I think when he goes over, it's like 100 for 5 more gigs or 10 more gigs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Such a classic Minnesota guy.
Yeah, he is for sure.
Get off the internet, you kids!
Turn it down. Yeah, he's got it, but no one's allowed to use it.
The internet's great if you're not using it.
Everyone just sits in the dark. Don't turn on anything.
We only have so much gas for the generator.
But so, Sonny, Jawaid, what are they actually voting on then on December 14th? Are they voting?
Repeal of net neutrality.
We got sidetracked there a little bit. So the Obama FCC There's this long history of treating the internet as something not really under the FCC's domain, right? And under Obama, the FCC, because they had this political pressure to, quote, do something, unquote.
Do something about nothing.
Yes.
In other words, let's do a power grab. Yeah.
That's exactly what they did. They went back and reversed, 18 years of precedence on the matter and said, oh, no, the internet is actually a Title II telecommunications service like the telephone companies as they existed in 1934.
Right.
And that gives us the complete authority to regulate anything we want about the internet.
Yeah, this horrible stuff we're still trying to recover from that was done in 34. Okay, we have to move on actually and do headlines, which, Jawaid, I hope you will stay with us here and you can talk about this stuff with us. Okay, Ashley, let's do headlines.
Yeah. Conyers announces retirement, endorses son to succeed him. Representative John Conyers on Tuesday announced his immediate retirement. The 88-year-old Conyers made his decision 2 weeks after sexual harassment allegations first surfaced and after returning last week to his Detroit area district to discuss his political future with his family and advisors. The most recent accusation, which surfaced Monday, detailed how Conyers more than a decade ago. Conyers. Sorry. You know how I am at
he's a Navarro Indian.
More than a decade ago, allegedly slid his hand up a woman's skirt and rubbed her thighs while they sat next to each other in church.
In church.
Whoa. Church.
The latest accusation comes mounting claims after Conyers was hospitalized.
I don't know what that has to do with anything, but yeah. Okay,
let's back up here. He's 88.
Yeah, what is he doing?
Is that right?
Working?
Hey, this was 10 years ago. He was 78. Yeah, 88. He's in Congress. But this is the and then the fact that he endorsed his son. I mean, this is one of those seats where he's had it for freaking ever, and he's being forced to retire not because he's freaking old, but because he has now been accused not just of harassing somebody, but he paid them off with government money, with taxpayer money. And now he's endorsing his son. And guess what this guy's name is? John Conyers III.
Oh, yeah. Well, nothing says democratic like hereditary dynasties.
Right.
Well, his son's probably a young man in his late 60s, right? If Conyers is 88. Right. He's probably in his mid to late. So
you have to see a picture of this douchebag.
Young strapping son can finally take over the seat.
Yeah.
From King Conyers.
Yeah, I'm sure his son is a decent fellow since his dad is such a corrupt piece of shit. All right. Yeah, that's a fun story. You got to see a picture of this guy. I'm going to put it on my blog when the show notes are in the show notes because he looks like I can't remember the guy's name from that Will Smith TV show. His
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah. So who was the guy who was like his cousin or whatever?
By the way, this guy is like the poster child for the young idealistic Democrat, right? Like, how do they not see the irony in that when they bill themselves as this party of the young, the millennials, and you've got an 88-year-old lecher who's been holding the seat for half of a century,
sexually harassing women in church. Yeah, he's a upstanding dude. Women. All right, let's move on to the next story.
Michael Flynn pleads guilty to false statement charge in Democratic witch trial.
I made that headline.
Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn pleads guilty Friday to making false statements to the FBI as part of the deal that involves his full cooperation in investigations with Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russian probe.
Okay, so I have a recap here. Let's just recap this whole situation. The clearly hostile, partisan Democrat hack FBI sends investigators to talk to Flynn about his conversations with Russian officials. Conversations that were not illegal. This is the incoming administration. This is normal. They're part of his job. And keep in mind, they're not investigating anything that had taken place in these conversations because they already knew what had been discussed because they had recorded them and listened to them.
Mm-hmm.
So the only reason they were there was to try to trap him into not revealing everything or, lying or obstruction or something like that. That's the only reason they were having this interview. And the only reason I say Flynn should have lost his job is because that was really stupid that he even said anything to them. They knew the conversation showed no evidence of collusion or anything illegal or improper. So they're just there to catch the guy in some bullshit charge.
He should have talked to his attorney, and what they did was they intimidated him into talking, and they scared him, and he made the mistake of, because he was scared, not speaking honestly about the conversation.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's a travesty.
If Lois Lerner cannot fucking say a word, this guy could have not said a word.
Right.
So anyway, the conversation that he had with the Russian ambassador were about two things. Can you please not vote to screw Israel in the UN? And can you please not overreact to Obama's sanctions on you? Just do do the same sanctions, but don't overreact. They said no to the first. No, we're going to screw Israel. And yes to the second. So it's not like they had pull. I mean, they're just like, can you please do this? There's nothing improper at all in these conversations. So he didn't tell the FBI what he talked to the Russians about. And I'm sure he's sitting there thinking, I'm not telling these hostile partisan Democrat hacks any fucking thing. And that was his mistake.
Well, this is the typical MO of these agencies, where they have this really complex web of regulations, or they start an investigation based on some premise, like you did something, and then they talk to you, they ask you for all sorts of requests, and if you don't dot every I and cross every T, they get you on an obstruction charge or lying to the FBI in some way. And so they always get you for the cover up, not the actual crime, because there was no crime. Meanwhile, look at what Hillary and her cronies did.
I know.
Before the election. They're literally like destroying thousands of emails and destroying their computers, not complying at all with any investigation. And there's evidence now that the people that were engaged in that had already exonerated her, essentially, before they even did the investigation, had no intention of really prosecuting her. And the people that were involved in that investigation were promoters of her, supporters of hers, and were anti-Trump people. So the whole thing is just a complete double standard.
It's worse than that. It's so much worse than that. They get away with it, and then they're just going on a witch hunt to try to take down a democratically elected president.
Yeah, and it's really a soft coup. I mean,
it really is. And I just can't even believe that I'm seeing people who are libertarians, even, or people who are civil libertarians, getting all like, "Oh, we're looking for this Russian." There's no crime. They have not yet pointed to a fact that anything happened in the elections that the Russians even manipulated or did. They don't even have a crime that they're investigating.
No, the only collusion with the Russians took place by Hillary's campaign when they engaged the Russians to do this dossier, and back in the Uranium One days.
And also when she sold uranium to Russia for money.
Yeah. And what this is really is, I think it's the deep state and the Washington establishment hates Trump and the idea of Trump so much that he's an outsider, he's not one of them, that they've essentially enabled this prosecutor, sort of like a standing sort of Damocles over the administration, so that they, keep him in line. And anything he does, they've always got this potential to impeach him in some way. So, and now we have, at taxpayer expense, we have this, how many dozens of investigators and lawyers with a blank check to comb through his records, his personal life, all of his associates. And of course they're going to find something.
Yeah, of course they are. And next it's going to be Kushner that they go after, because I guess he told Flynn to make the calls, but he also said call all 12 of these countries and connect with them and talk to them about these issues. And that was perfectly proper. But, it's just amazing they're getting away with this. And at this point, I would be totally okay with Trump just saying, this investigation's over. Mueller or whatever, you're fired. And Flynn is pardoned. And I'm going to pardon anyone else that you guys indict here, unless it's a real charge.
Yeah, either come up with a charge
Yeah.
Right now, you've got 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Come up with a
Come up with a
charge or you're
crime,
out.
for God's sake, related to Russian collusion, which is what this is all about. Even the Manafort thing, which, I mean, I think probably Manafort's like a skeezy dude, but what is his crime is like something about not applying as an agent. It's like a paperwork issue that no one else is ever accused of. And everyone that has a position like him does the exact same thing he did.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is the swamp reacting. They are frightened of what Trump represents, which is an outsider. And because he's an outsider, neither political party nor the swamp have any control over him. I think probably any other politician who makes it to Washington, some government agency probably has 10 pounds of documents of dirt that they can use to control you, and they have nothing on Trump. Nobody has ever been elected president that didn't have a huge political history before, so they have nothing on him. And the guy's an asshole for sure, but you know what? He's definitely not your typical Washington politician. And then the swamp is this, people also use the term deep state, right? The swamp is this group of people who are the ones who really wield the power of government. They're the ones who can invade your house and shoot you in a no-knock raid. They're the people who can confiscate your money and never give it back, even when no criminal charges are ever proved. They're the people who are spying on your emails and telephone calls illegally. And these are the people that wield the power. One of the issues with a government that has such a broad power as our federal government does is that the figureheads, the politicians, can't possibly control or can't possibly understand, let alone control it all. And so the people that the power devolves to, all the day-to-day, are the permanent bureaucracy. They're the ones that hold the power, and they're the ones that have from day one of this administration been, there have been agencies that have organized, internal resistance, like don't obey this new president's orders.
Yeah. The leaks,
like
the Department of Justice person just saying, no, I'm not going to obey the president's orders, even though that's the job. And on and on. And the Comey thing, there's so much proof of them really, resisting this president in a really unlawful and nefarious way. And I don't know. I think I don't care if you like Trump or you don't like Trump. Like, this should freak you out if you care at all about rule of law and equality, equality under the law. And also if you care about, and I'm not necessarily into democracies, but if you care about the democratic process, Trump was elected. If you like it or you don't like it, he's the guy people wanted. And that's what it is. You can't take him down.
Nobody should have this much power. And that's what the left is freaking out about, that somebody they can't control is now now has the reins of all this power.
Yeah.
That's what they're reacting to.
You know what's interesting about this though too is that it's actually exposed the segment of the right. I know if I would call them the right. These Republicans, Mitch McConnell-esque swamp dwellers that are just as awful as the left in this regard in terms of their inability to provide any sort of oversight of these agencies like the DOJ and the FBI. Where the Republicans control the Congress, where they control the executive branch, and yet where are they? I mean, what are they doing?
Right.
Nothing.
Well, he's also 88, isn't he?
He might be 188, but
I can't get over how droopy his face is. I did a whole video on how droopy his face is. I just can't get it. He's so ridiculous a person.
But they're just. I think they're just as afraid of Trump as anyone.
Yes.
Because the Mitch McConnells of the world, his privileged position is definitely in jeopardy, and they fear the Steve Bannon types who are going after them for good reason.
It seems so big and so like it's not possible. They're so entrenched and so big. And Trump is an outsider and they don't have anything on him. And yet he still has to sit there and let this investigation happen.
Right. The internet is still pretty young. And the Trump election and actually the Obama election before him were both heavily influenced by the internet, in the sense that the internet for the first time is really truly democratizing many areas of life, right? So you have your Ubers and your Airbnbs and those types of companies that are, in a sense, just helping individuals organize and leverage their talents and assets without the need to have a giant controlling central authority. You have Bitcoin, which is a type of currency that isn't used necessarily for currency that much today, but has the potential to be a huge decentralized tool for people to use, powered by the internet. And you're starting to see the decentralization of politics, the media-controlled politics for 100 years in this country. And
yeah,
the media
that's what's freaky.
leftist.
Yeah, that's what we're learning is, sometimes it feels overwhelming and new because all of this stuff is kind of coming to light. But we have to remember that without the internet, or before the internet, we just didn't know this stuff.
That's right. And so Trump is kind of I think the Trump phenomena is an exhibition of this, where people are starting to take political power back. And it's maybe ultimately going to result in effective third parties, maybe. And that's one of the reasons everyone's so scared. The media is terrified of Trump because Trump just goes around the media using the internet. He doesn't need the media anymore. He's going around traditional politics. He doesn't need the support of all the different state party leaders and the local party leaders, because he just went straight to his constituents using the internet. So,
and love him or hate him, he's setting this as a new standard. So
this is a new standard. The
next guy who comes in, who's maybe less grading on people and has a little more statesmanship. Oh my God, the landscapers have just arrived and started their, oh great. I didn't even know it was their day. Well, we're going to have to wrap this up anyway, but what I'm saying is this is a new standard, not only in the un-PC language, which is great. I don't think that people will have to be as rehearsed in the future, which I love. I think he has so gone to the other extreme that we're going to see politicians with much freer language, much less rehearsed language. And they're going to be able to do that because they're going to be so much milder than Trump, even when they're being blunt and honest and direct. And then this is a really interesting point you're making, Jawaid, that the other really awesome thing is he's using new media and going around the old media. And everybody's going to do that now in the future too, including really good, freedom-loving, true, principled, constitutionalist politicians, hopefully.
What that will require of us, the people, is to develop better critical thinking and judgment skills so that we don't necessarily keep electing Donald Trumps. But at the end of the day, us getting this new power and this new ability to communicate and interact directly, I think will be a tremendous good.
I do too. This is like the pain before the pain before the, like, we're kind of, it's messy and it's ugly, but it's the start of something great. Maybe. And on that note, let's end the show.
Get your cat inside.
Get my cat inside. Okay. Jawaid, thank you so much for clearing up the mess of net neutrality. And I feel like I get it now. And everybody out there listening, thanks for joining us today. If you're enjoying the show, please consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/houseofsunny. Also, give us some stars over on iTunes. Subscribe to our podcast over there or on YouTube at my channel, House of Sunny. Next week, our guest is undetermined, but after that, I've booked some really great comedians to come on the show. So that's coming up, and we'll announce that soon. And thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded. And because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/houseofsunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.